And without further ado, I'm really excited to welcome Jon Younger. Jon writes the Freelance Revolution blog for Forbes, is the best-selling author of Agile Talent and several other books on the future of work. He has started a number of companies, taken 2 public, is an angel investor, and is an advisory board member of several startups in the freelance space, including Jolt. We're so excited to welcome him. And he's also just a wonderful person, as you're about to see.
What is the workplace culture and management style? What's the working environment that's likely to best engage and motivate you? We call that propulsion. We have 3 factors as we think about career: your preference, the propulsion that keeps you moving forward and excited and satisfied and productive, and performance over the course of a career. What is it that you need to do to stay fresh, to stay top in your class, et cetera, et cetera? We're talking about propulsion here, and it's very much associated with the idea of career orientations. Here are the 3 goals that we have for this webinar. 1, what are the work arrangements that enable you to do your best and most satisfying work? And I am very excited to share that model of career orientations with you. 2nd, at the heart of career is a notion of getting a fair deal at work, which is how you balance what you receive for your time and effort and what you give in exchange for that, and how to create fairness so that what you give and what you get is in reasonable alignment. That's the 3rd goal, which is to create greater alignment, a better fit for you and for others at work. The starting point for career orientation is give and get, and it's very basic stuff. There's a combination of 2 pieces. 1 is what I give to my work. As a freelancer, what I give. Well, what is it that I give? I give my time, I give my effort, I give the benefit of my education, I give my skills, I give my insights, and I get my choice to work on your project versus somebody else's. That's what I give to a job, to a client, to an organization. What I get in return has to be equivalent to, in fairness with, that gift. So what is it that I'm counting on? I'm counting on reasonable pay, reasonable treatment, reasonable work, reasonable opportunities to do more interesting things and continue to do the things that I like doing, and reasonable opportunity to grow and develop as an individual. When our give and our get is in alignment, is in balance, we feel pretty good. When we give more than we get, we feel exploited, we feel taken advantage of. We're not very excited about going to the job site, and we're not very excited about going back the next day. And if you think about what happens when we get more than we give, well, it's a nice feeling, but it can be pretty frustrating because it doesn't seem like it makes sense. It feels like maybe something's going on that's sort of wrong. As you start to think about give and get, there's really some interesting research about what it looks like. And the research is from a gentleman named Hertzberg who did that work during the 70s. And he identified that some gives and some gets are not equal to others. He talked in terms of 2 factors. The first are hygiene factors, and the second are motivators. When we talk about hygiene factors, what we mean, and you see them on the left here in the slide, hygiene factors create at best okayness. They create enough satisfaction that you find it acceptable until something better comes along. So what is it that is in a hygiene factor? Well, it's your pay, it's your title, it's the benefits that you receive, whether as a freelancer or as an employee. It's the way in which you're managed by your project head if you're a freelancer or by your supervisor if you're an employee. And of course, the schedule, the time off, et cetera, et cetera. All of these are what Hertzberg called hygiene factors, which means I can feel okay about it, but it will never make me feel great. And if something else comes along, I'm interested. What are the motivational factors? Well, they're very different than the hygiene factors. Even though pay sounds like it ought to be really important, it actually just brings you up to okay. Because the day after you raise your rate as a freelancer, you're already feeling like you're giving something away. We never get excited by the rate of pay for very long. So what are the motivational factors that create satisfaction for you and retention on the job or as an employee staying in the job? First, it's whether the work is work that's interesting to you. Remember that the first give and get is you're giving your effort in exchange for work that you want to do. Second is your responsibility for that work. How much autonomy do you have? How much guidance are you given? Is somebody looking over your shoulder each moment to make sure you do it right, or are you trusted and protected to do it well? Third, your influence. Do you have influence in your project? Do people want to hear what you have to say? Do people listen to what you say when you have a successful idea? Recognition. Are you treated with the respect of somebody that's seen as doing important and good work? Recognition for a freelancer may mean an attaboy. Recognition can also mean the opportunity to, for example, present the work that you're doing somewhere else, et cetera, et cetera. So recognition becomes important for some people, a lot, other people, not so much, but it's always a motivational factor. And finally, opportunity for personal growth. We all want the opportunity to continue to grow in competence. And the only way that we can continue to grow in competence is to be given and receive opportunity for ourselves to grow professionally and personally. Therefore, the hygiene factors are the factors that get you to okay. The motivational factors are the factors that are most important in establishing a fair deal of give and get. There's some really interesting research that says that different people have different interests, and therefore the specifics of the motivational factors will be different. And what I'd like to show you is some really interesting work that was done by Ed Schein and Lottie Balin at MIT. And what they did was this. They went to graduates of the MIT Sloan School, and they went to graduates of the engineering school, and over 20 years, they followed them. They asked them surveys once a year. What are you interested in? What are you doing? What gives you your pleasure? What satisfies you? Where are you most productive? And what they found was that there were several, what they call career anchors, that were most important for different people. One career anchor was technical challenge. For some people, challenging work that continues to test me, challenge me, and grow my expertise, that is what I need for my get. I will give you whatever it is I can, but in exchange, I want a continuing challenging work. As a freelancer, I don't want to do the same stuff 20 times. I want to continue to grow and develop and learn new skills. Second, some freelancers are solopreneurs hoping to be entrepreneurs. And for them, the key is to grow in prestige and influence and to have more control over their career and to grow their career, to have more than just themselves working. Perhaps it's one or two or three, or maybe it's a large firm that they're building over time. They've started as an individual, but as Steve King in Emergent Research talks about 15% of these folks are in fact entrepreneurs that are starting out. Third, some freelancers want autonomy. They want the freedom and the flexibility to do their best work. They don't want people looking over their shoulders. Tell me what it is you want me to get done and how and when, but don't tell me the specifics. Don't give me the details. Security and stability was my dad's career anchor. My dad worked for the taxation department in the US, and what he wanted was a job where they were as invested in him as he was invested in them. Well, that also makes sense for freelancers who are looking for long assignments in a few companies as opposed to a lot of gigs in a lot of different companies. Do they want to build a relationship, for example, permanent part-time work? Entrepreneurship, we've talked about. Service, for some folks, this is all about giving back to the world and making the world a better place. And the get that they want is the opportunity to do that. And then finally, lifestyle. And what we mean by lifestyle is the balance of work, family, and other interests. The point of this is, of a lifestyle orientation is, how do I maintain balance so that I'm involved in all of the things that matter to me? The first is, he called getting ahead. This is for people who are focused on advancement, influence, status, not because status in and of itself, but because people want agency, control over their life. And one of the ways that they can do that is by advancing in their career, building influence, increasing in status and responsibility. Many of the freelancers who are focused on that career orientation end up building firms, not just remaining as solopreneurs, but some do, of course. Second, getting secure. This was my dad in the tax department. Getting secure is all about wanting to be part of a relationship or having a commitment to a set of relationships that are also interested in having a relationship with me. That is to say, these are individuals who are looking for a commitment from one or multiple organizations over time. Third, getting high. And when they say getting high, they mean, I want the challenge of variety, of change, of tough jobs. I want to continue to feel as though I am excited by the newness of what I do. That is a getting high. Please don't ask me to do the same thing over again and again and again. Ask me to do the next most difficult thing and I am yours. I wonder if people are starting to relate to some of these, and I'd be very interested in how you're relating to them. Fourth, getting free. Getting free is very straightforward. Tell me what to accomplish and by then, but don't tell me how to do it. Don't stand over me watching me do this. Don't ask me to report each day. Trust me. Accept my expertise and trust me. And then finally, getting balanced. Getting balanced is something that's all about managing more than the work. It's ability to manage the work, but also to see the benefit from and balance with your personal interests, your families, etc. My world was rocked when I first had a kid. And my world was rocked again when I had grandchildren. That's what getting balanced means. It's I want to participate in the fullness of my life, and I want to be able to do that. So, with that in mind, here's what the research has found, and here's the stuff that I think you might find interesting. One, most individuals have a major, whether it's getting ahead or getting secure, getting high, or getting free, or getting balanced. But nobody's just one thing. There's always more than one orientation involved. People typically have a major and then one or more minors. Second, your orientation is likely to change over time as a result of life events. For example, my having a kid, my having a grandson, somebody getting married, somebody divorcing, somebody discovering something about their life that is new and wonderful and that they really want to pursue. Orientations change over life. You are not just one thing, and you are not just one thing forever. Third, there's no best orientation. There is a best orientation for you in the sense that what makes sense for your give and get, but orientations don't have an impact per se on your performance, on your productivity, etc. Where they do have an impact is if your orientation is different from the environment that you're working in, that's going to be problematic. And that's the last part, which is your productivity and your satisfaction depend on maintaining a healthy give and get balance. Remember, give is what you put in, get is what you receive. If you feel as though you're giving more than you're getting, it's frustrating. If you feel as though you're getting more than you're giving, you're wondering what's going on. One is it's just nice to know kind of what's important for you. But second, it's easy to fake it short term, but working against type really does have a problem. If I'm a getting ahead guy and the environment is one of challenge, the environment is one of getting high, I don't know how to meet my goals. So it's going to impact my energy, it's going to impact my enthusiasm, I'm going to feel confused, and it's likely to impact my performance. What we know is that orientation fit between the environment and me is more important, 5 times more important than pay or working hours on satisfaction. That is to say, if you've got a good fit between your give and your get, it will have a much bigger impact on your satisfaction than your pay or your working hours. Not long term, but for the moment. Over time, you need to be paid fairly. Over time, you need to work a reasonable number of hours, but not an unreasonable number of hours. But orientation fit is an important piece. And finally, an increase in orientation fit increases your satisfaction, but it also increases your retention, your willingness to go back to the work and continue to work on it. It reduces absenteeism, your inclination to not pursue the work, etc. Finally, what does it mean for freelancers? Well, first is important to know what matters to you. Second, periodically revisit your orientation, again, because things change. One is that your family situation may change. Second is your interests may change. Third is your areas of expertise and therefore what you want to focus on may change. Whatever it is, take the time to periodically review. And the third point is share your orientation with the platform and with client project leads. In other words, you want to the extent possible for you to get the kind of work that really does meet the give and get balance. And if you've gotten that kind of work, you're much more likely to be satisfying, you're much more likely to be successful, you're much more likely to be productive, you're much more likely to get subsequent follow-on work from that client. Fourth, there's a concept called, career sculpting or job sculpting. And the notion of job sculpting is that for any job, whether freelance or full-time, there's some flexibility to shape the work. Typically, that's somewhere between 5 and 15%. But if you think about the work, 5 to 15%, this is pretty important. So the idea here is, as you share your orientation with your project lead or with the platform or with the matchers, see if you can't participate in shaping the job just a little to make it more fully consistent with what attracts you as a freelancer and as any career orientation. So for example, if I'm getting ahead, well, I'd love the opportunity in my 5 to 15% job sculpting to have an opportunity to present the stuff that I'm doing to a larger audience virtually now, but perhaps at a conference in the future, because that helps me with my getting ahead. If I'm getting high, then one of the things that may be really important for me is the chance to have a little bit of a voice, just a little bit of a voice in how I and what I focus on. And that can be something that I can work out with the project lead that I'm working for, the organization that I'm freelancing for, etc. You understand the principle. The principle is apply the rule, take responsibility for actually working with the matchers, the platform, the clients, to make the work a little more sculpted to you. It's usually possible. And then the last piece is, when possible, Avoid work that fits poorly with your orientation. That's a tough thing to do right now, and I understand how tough it is to say no to work when you need the work. But at the end of the day, my recommendation to you is see if the work really does meet the give and the get. Because if it meets the give and the get, you're going to be glorious. But if it doesn't meet, if it's a real shot outside of what it is that turns you on, you're probably not going to do a great job. Maybe there's a way to work with other people so that you give them that one and they get a different one. My first recommendation is hunt in packs. Let me say that again, hunt in packs. And what I mean by that is it's a lot easier to find good client work when more than one of you is working together to help each other to land interesting work. You know, it's one thing to depend on the platform for work, but we can also bring work into the platform. A significant amount of the freelance work that we do doesn't come from the internet, it comes from our relationships. And so as you're building those relationships and working together to find work that can help more than one of us and bring those opportunities to the platform as well, that's a pretty neat first start. Matthias, what would you add?
Yeah, I very much agree, and I think it's about, you know, a very clear pattern that we see in terms of freelancing in general is that generalists generally have a hard time as freelancers because companies seldomly hire someone who is pretty good at marketing and also can do some sales and a bit of business development and strategy. They typically know exactly what they're looking for, and therefore the more kind of specialized you are, and the more you can communicate exactly what value and benefits you bring to your clients as a freelancer, the easier it is to get work, and the easier it also is for you to kind of go down a route and keep specializing on that. Obviously, it's a difficult time right now, but if you're looking for work right now, look in industries that are having, the general picture I think is that most industries are in a freeze right now. So they are kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. And so is everyone else. And so it's like a negative spiral. However, some industries are definitely seeing a boom so big that they can't handle it. Look at, video conferencing software. I'm pretty sure Demio, which is the platform we host here, have a pretty good time these days and so forth. So look in those industries. And then the other point I wanted to make is that the picture I think we're going to see is that freelancing will rise proportionally after kind of this freeze period, because that's what we've seen in the last couple of crises that have been impacting the world. And the reason is that the capability for companies to be agile, flexible, to work with the best people that are out there specialized in whatever they do is getting more and more important in tough times. So imagine that most companies are kind of forced to look at how do they operate. How does their workforce work? Are they able to work with freelancers efficiently? Is it part of their strategy or not? And the ones who haven't kind of understood this are being forced to kind of go down that route now for the better, I think. So
there is no better advice that I can give than when you're writing about freelancing, what is it about the freelancing universe that you find particularly interesting, and write about that and keep going, because as you do that, it'll continue to expand, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing that I've learned, which is really important, is if you want people to read your blog, you have to ask them. So one of the things that I do whenever I write is I ask a lot of people to read it and comment on it, because I want it to be in the public domain. I encourage you to do it.
Best advice I can give is to kind of, as a freelancer, think about yourself as someone who's an expert in some area, and think about what your clients are interested in that area, and kind of be the channel for sharing, news, viewpoints, and whatever is happening kind of in that area. So as an example, we work with big banks that hire IT specialists on Worksome, and a lot of those people are working in a way that's called Agile, which is a new kind of framework that the technology and IT organizations typically work according to, and there are definitely some kind of opinion leaders out there talking about Agile and how that should be applied in the finance industry and how fintechs are disrupting using those methodologies and so on. The same goes for someone in advertising working on graphic design for, fintech apps again, perhaps, and kind of being that voice of what's really going on here will position you as a freelancer as someone who is definitely knowledgeable about what's happening in this space.
When I'm writing, I'm really focusing on that one niche that I care about, because I know that I will attract a specific audience with that content. And when people are looking for content, they're usually looking for something which is very relevant to what they're thinking about at that time. And so if you try too broad, then there's that old adage about if you try to speak to everybody, you speak to nobody. And so with writing, you want to try to be as narrow as possible, and you actually connect with people in a more meaningful way.
I break my time into 3 categories. First category is selling and doing work. First category is doing work. Second category is selling work and connecting up with colleagues. And the third is building my capability, future-proofing my skills. If you're not working on all 3 of those, relationships with your former and future clients, if you're not working on your skill set, and if you're not engaged in doing the productive work as you have time, you're not living a full life. So the first thing you've got to do is think in terms of all 3 of those. My personal way of dealing with it is that I need to keep mentally, physically, and professionally fit. If I'm not keeping mentally, physically, and professionally fit, then it's really hard for me to be motivated. It's hard because my body's disconnected from my brain and my brain is disconnected from my feet. So one of the things that I do is I spend an hour exercising no matter what. I still have a COVID-10, as they say. I'm eating a little too much, but I make sure to exercise each day. I make sure to do some reading each day in my area of expertise. I study. Even as a 68-year-old, I want to know what's new in my craft, and I spend time every day doing it. And then, of course, I spend some time either writing or doing the other work that I would normally do. And I do that at a specific time each day. From 6 o'clock in the morning to noon, I am working. And my afternoon these days is for all kinds of other things. But I find that the discipline of having to do those 3 things, sell, do, build capability, physically fit, professionally fit, mentally fit, if I do that, I stay motivated. That's my solution for me. Now, that doesn't mean I don't get frustrated, I don't get nervous, that I don't get scared, that I won't get another job. But if I do the things I'm describing, the world seems to continue and the future seems not to have been canceled.
There's actually a real benefit to the client that you're not only working for them, because they benefit a lot from you working with other companies and kind of bring the knowledge of what's going on out there. So I think it's that's really important. I think though also, basically what you mentioned, Jon, that is, as a freelancer, there is pretty much no way around spending some time on sales, getting work, getting embedded in clients. Lots of freelancers get work from working with clients and getting to know other people in that company and kind of becoming the default, graphic designer that they reach out to when they need design or whatever it is your craft is. So I would never kind of underestimate spending time building relations to not only the people who hired you, but also their colleagues, and kind of, not see yourself as someone who's on the side of that company, but someone who is basically in the company. We see a very clear picture that the boundaries between traditional employment and freelancing is blurring super fast. So I think in London, the average tenure for an IT or developer full-time is about 18 months, and for a freelancer, it's 13 months. And so what's happening, and I think what's accelerating with the current business climate, is that companies think less about what's on the contract. They don't think so much about, is this a full-time hire that we've done, or is it a freelancer? They think more in terms of who's the best person out there to do this. And if that person happens to be a freelancer wanting a freelance contract, they'll be saying, fine, doesn't matter too much to us as long as we get what you can apply. Yeah. What do you think, Jon?
I like your answer better than the one I was going to give, so I'll change it. And what I was going to say is that if you think about why you're contacting those folks, there's sort of two things that are important. One is what you want to do is build and renew trust. I mean, at the end of the day, the relationship that I have as a freelancer with a client is all about whether I can be trusted. And so what does that trust mean? Well, part of it is trusted to have the skills necessary to do the job. The important point that Matthias made, which was be really clear about your skills and keep building them, keep reinforcing them. Tell your clients what you're doing to keep reinforcing them, and about some of the really cool projects that you're working on that makes them feel like you're somebody that can help them. Second, follow up. I've got a list of people that I call daily, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, and quarterly. And I do it without fail. And the consequence of that is that I'm in touch with an awful lot of people on a regular basis. So I'm always in the stream of opportunity. Very important. If you're not in the stream of opportunity, you're not going to get opportunity. So how do you play in the stream? Yeah.
Just because we can see in kind of our data that what makes a freelance collaboration fail is very seldomly the actual work getting done or the freelancer's lack of skills. If it fails, it's most often because of a lack of communication. And that means over communicating almost, and especially setting super clear boundaries and be very clear in the expectations before the work starts is always worth it, because that means that the client will definitely pay if something goes wrong. It's much easier kind of to discuss a solution and find a solution and so on. So I guess that's one area of expertise that every freelancer should look into, getting sort of a really clear strategy for how to communicate with clients. Follow up, set expectations, check in regularly, and ask for feedback. Are you happy? What could I have done better? Next time, how would you like to do it so that it gets even better and so on? Because that also shows that it's developing a relationship and it's trust-based together with your clients.
I wish I was as articulate as he is. Well done, man.
I want to say a huge thank you to Matthias and to Jon for delivering such wonderful content. And we hope that you are safe and well. And we hope to connect with all of you again very soon.